My guest today rose to stardom in 2024 on BBC's Race Across the World. She stole the heart of the nation alongside her brother in the TV moment of the year. Founder of It's a Balanced Thing, an MRKH advocate, it's Betty Mukherjee.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
So, most of the nation know you, and if they haven't, they seriously need to make sure they turn on their TVs on and actually watch decent programmes. Most of them know you from Race Across the World.
Yeah.
And the incredible moment that you had with James, your brother, which was captivating, really emotional, and I think just blew everyone away, really. So for those that potentially don't, the small minority, can you tell everyone what MRKH is?
Yeah, so MRKH is a condition which is characterised by sort of abnormalities in a woman's reproductive system. So usually affects the womb, and usually it's characterised by like the absence of a womb. There's two types of MRKH. I have type 2. So that means it affects other sort of organs as well. It can affect hearing, spinal, things like that. So I actually don't have a uterus, and I only have one kidney.
Gosh, so it can actually go anywhere in the body in terms of all the way from, like you say, reproductive system,
Yeah.
spine and other organs like that.
Yeah, and there's, weirdly enough, it can affect like your hearing as well. And you know, I think
Wow.
back to like earlier on in my life, I actually had tests on my hearing when I was like 4 or 5.
Really?
They kind of just came to the conclusion that I was a very loud child. But now I think back to it and I think, oh, was it because of, you know, this condition? Who knows?
Yeah, I guess anyone that lives with a chronic illness, especially many of the women that listen to this in terms of gynecological conditions, will know that when you do eventually get that diagnosis, you do then end up reflecting backwards and thinking, oh my word, all those little things that I either dismissed myself or somebody else potentially dismissed, were they all kind of little warning signs leading up to what I found out?
Yeah, it's. I suppose you can only do something with the information you have. If you don't have that information, you know.
Yeah.
I think if I was going for hearing tests at 4 years old, my mum was going to be like, "Oh, well, does she have a womb?" You know, it's just like you don't even, you know, think to kind of link those things.
Yeah. So if we start at the beginning for you in terms of your journey with MRKH.
Yeah.
You were 16, I'm right in thinking, when you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so I went for my first kind of scan when I was 15.
Okay.
Just before my 16th birthday. I got sent for an MRI scan.
Mm-hmm.
And this was actually after going to the doctors quite a few times over sort of a 2-3 year period.
Wow, okay.
So I started developing when I was young. I must have been 10 when I got my first armpit hair, honestly. Like,
10?
I was young.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Whoever's making those decisions needs a recheck.
It was only
not...
one really long one.
Oh, I don't know if that's better or worse.
But I started developing quite early on, so like it's only natural really that I should have started my period, you know, early.
Yeah, of course.
So I think when you start to become aware of your body, you start to get like an inkling to who you are, like your identity, things changing, and you know, you have sex education when you're in like year 5, so you're like what, 9 and 10?
Yeah.
So you start to learn about periods and wearing a training bra and da-da-da. So in my head I was like, yeah, it's going to happen, it's coming.
Yeah.
And then it never did. So around sort of, you know, being 12, 13, 14 years old, I was starting to question myself already.
Yeah, and that peer pressure must have been tough.
Yeah.
School can be difficult in the best of circumstances.
Yeah, it can.
So being around other young women
Yeah.
that are potentially going through those phases and those changes,
Yes.
I imagine you're looking around thinking, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah, and you just start to question yourself, and it's weird that you said before about kind of going back and questioning things, because I remember going to the doctors throughout this period with pain, like severe pain, and now looking back I'm thinking, was I in pain, or did I just actually need a doctor's attention? Because I in my head thought there's something wrong and I wanted checking out. And
was it pain everywhere, or was it pain in like a certain place?
Yeah, in my stomach.
Wow,
to the point where they actually said, did I have like grumbling appendix? Because like I'd go to the doctors, I was in pain, and then it would just go. And now I'm wondering, like, was that a bit like psychosymptomatic? Was it just my mind going, there's something up and I need some sort of medical attention, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Because when I got my diagnosis, like, I didn't really experience that pain anymore. But it's not, you know, my condition isn't something that causes pain.
Yes.
You know, so it's like, why was I getting that? But every time I went to the doctors, they were kind of just like, you're just going to start your period, like, it's coming. So, you know, if you get told that, you, like, kind of anticipate it. And when it never came, I was like,
Yeah, and it's almost, I mean, it might not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe not pressure, but kind of expectation. If you then have, like, those, you know, we look at doctors as authority figures, like we do parents, and we kind of think, well, whatever they say, I'm going to listen to, they'll be right, I can trust whatever it is they're saying. So I guess when you have multiple doctors over quite a long time, 2-3 years, saying, it's coming, be patient, like, it'll happen, you're just a late bloomer.
Yes, exactly that.
There's that kind of like, okay, well, they've told me that, but then once it's on your mind, is it difficult to get rid of?
Yeah, I suppose, like, I suppose it's just, like, conflicting views, isn't it? In your own mind, it's like, I think you do have that instinct about yourself, you have those gut feelings, and I had that. And then, like you say, it's that conflicting view against a professional that's saying, you're just going to start your period and it's fine. And it's really difficult in your own mind to kind of navigate through that. I think at such a young age as well, when you're already starting to, like, develop your identity and, like, wonder about who you are as a person and what you're going to become. And I think that's a really challenging place to be.
Definitely. I think an adult 30-40 years of experience would struggle with their own, like, say, gut instincts, and their body's clearly trying to communicate something to them. But then you've got a doctor that's saying, this is how it is. And I think anyone would struggle with that. But at 16 years old, that's no age whatsoever. You're still a kid, aren't you? So in those doctor's appointments, I'm just interested, how did you find the doctor's, like, reception? Did you feel listened to? Was it kind of positive conversations, difficult ones, a bit of a mix? How did that go?
I think the doctor's appointments where I kind of just got told, oh, you're starting your period, I think I remember feeling quite dismissed, but not in the sense that I wasn't really listened to. It was more like I couldn't communicate how I was feeling. Because I was just like, I'm in pain, but I'm not really sure what this is about. And obviously, like, doctors, the NHS, they're under so much pressure and stress as it is, let alone having to know all this information about all these different conditions. And then they have a 15-year-old girl there going, I'm in pain, but I'm not really sure why or where or da-da-da. So I think it was a really just difficult, they were just difficult situations. But I do vividly remember going to kind of the last doctor's appointment, and it was a woman doctor, and she was lovely, and I felt really heard and listened to, and she was like, actually, I don't think everything's quite right, so let's send you for a scan. And that's when I went for an ultrasound scan for the first time, and it came back blank, and there wasn't much to see in there, so and then I went for another ultrasound scan, and then I went for an MRI scan, and that's kind of what gave me my diagnosis.
And it's not fun, is it, going for scans and then being like, oh my goodness, thank God, okay, someone's thinking, there's something not right here. I'm going for a scan, great, someone's going to tell me what's going on. And then you have the scan and they think, oh, can't see anything, or I haven't got any definitive test results. That's not easy at all, because am I right in thinking that your scans, like, brought up some kind of strange or surprising messages from the doctor in terms of what they said to you? So
the first scan that I had that came up blank, they just kind of said, oh, you're too gassy and this can happen quite a lot and you need to come back. And then when I went for an MRI scan, they don't actually give you your results there and then. It's kind of like, oh, well, we'll go back to your GP and then you can get your results next week, whatever. And I think because in my head, I'd never ever heard of MRKH, so that wasn't even on the radar.
No.
It wasn't even a possibility in my mind that I had organs missing.
I mean, who would think that?
Exactly.
That is not even in the realms of possibility, especially at 16 years old, when you're thinking, I'm scared enough as it is, I just want someone to tell me what this is. I
think I had, two things in my mind, and one of them was not being able to carry children. That was kind of one of my biggest, it was the biggest worry for me. But I just didn't know, like, how that would come about. So, that was obviously tricky.
Yeah, definitely.
But it just wasn't in my thought process that I had some organs missing. So yeah, it was a very, very bizarre time.
And the way that you found out wasn't, I was going to use the word normal, which isn't appropriate, but wasn't maybe standard of what you'd expect from the medical process of going through kind of investigation and diagnosis. You found out in quite a different way to maybe the standard person.
Yeah, so I actually remember going to the doctors to get my results, and they said, oh, we've not received your results through from the hospital, like, we'll give you a call kind of thing. And because I was 16 and I was going to say underage, but I'm not actually sure what I think it is 18 and you still go through your parents.
I think you're right, yeah. I think it's like consent of information things.
Yeah. So it was actually my mum that got the call, and my mum worked at school. So I remember going in for my lunch money into her office, and I could tell she'd been crying, but she didn't say anything. Obviously she wasn't going to tell me at school. And yeah, it was that evening my mum and dad came in and told me. And I do think in some sense that was better.
Okay.
I think maybe better for them because actually they had time to kind of process and how to say it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if I was told in the moment, like with my mum beside me in the doctor's room, obviously you don't know how these things are going to pan out, but I think to be in the comfort of my own bedroom was better.
Yeah, it's a safe space.
Yeah.
And we don't know, obviously, if it didn't happen in the way that it did, but sometimes bedside manner can be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of care there from practitioners and a lot of good intention, but maybe sometimes if there's a lot going on or the kind of medical scientific side takes over, and sometimes that bedside manner can be slightly cold or a bit abrupt.
Yes.
So I imagine that was very, very different to what your parents did when they had to have that unbelievably hard conversation with you. How did that go?
Well, I remember my mum kind of saying, oh, the doctor's rang and you only have one kidney. And I was like, oh. And then she went, oh, and you don't have a womb either. And I think I just remember, the first instance, laughing. And then she kind of explained it. I think for her it was just, like, a shock as well.
Talk about ripping the Band-Aid off.
I know, yeah. But we do laugh about it now because, I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I remember saying to her, I was like, oh, I feel lighter. I just remember thinking, oh, I've got organs missing. It's empty in there. But yeah.
So I think when you get a massive bit of information, and I think being told any diagnosis, you're maybe expecting something because you think something's wrong, but you can never expect what's actually coming. It is traumatic, and it does take you aback, and there's shock there, and that is, psychologically, there's a lot that happens in that moment.
Yeah.
So almost any reaction that you had in that moment was the only one that you could possibly give, because there's no way that you can process something like that in such a short initial space of time.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like you were one person 1 minute, and suddenly you've been given this information, and suddenly you feel like a different sense of belonging and purpose and everything. It was... For me, it was like my whole world had actually turned upside down, and I know that is so cliche to say, but in a few months' time from after my diagnosis, I was going to go to college, I was going to do childhood development, I wanted to be a preschool teacher. Like, my whole world, in a sense, evolved around children.
Yeah.
And I was a really maternal person, and like I said before, my biggest fear was not being able to have my own children.
Yeah.
I think when we hear the word uterus and womb, that's all we think is children.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, my brain automatically went, well, who am I, and what am I meant to be doing, and what does my future look like? And at 16, all these questions were suddenly going around my head.
Yeah.
And, like you say, at 16, you're only just discovering who you are anyway, so for that to all change...
Yeah, it's you're at the tip of the iceberg. There's no way any 16-year-old really knows who you are. I mean... you'd hate to hear that. If I've just said that to a 16-year-old, I'm sure they'll be thinking, oh, what do you know?
I still don't. I'm 27 now, I still have no idea.
Same, I'm also 27. I still think, I'm working it out, we'll figure it out as we go along.
Exactly.
But you're, tip of the iceberg trying to figure out and start that process, and it's complicated, and there's all sorts of things that come into that, and then if you go down the road of university or travelling the world, there's even more kind of different factors that come into that.
Yeah.
So what was it that you started to kind of question when you had that moment of okay, I just think it's like a bomb's gone off, my entire world's been blown up, and now the pieces are falling through the sky and starting to land.
Yeah.
What were those pieces and things that you started to kind of look at?
I think my brain automatically went to not being able to have children.
Yeah.
And that's obviously such a big thing at 16 because that was never in my thought process anyway.
No.
You know?
No.
It wasn't 16, alright, I'm going to leave school, I'm going to have kids. Like, that wasn't it at all. But,
Yeah.
like I say, when you hear, like, womb or uterus, like, you automatically think, right, I can't have children.
Yeah.
Now, it's actually coming up to 11 years since I got my diagnosis.
Wow.
On the 13th of February. By the time this is out.
I know, by the time
It'll
it's
be-
out, it'll be 11 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now, it's only like now that I'm at a place where I'm like, actually, I'm going to be a mum. You know, it doesn't matter how that comes about, whether it's surrogacy, whether it's a womb transplant, whether it's adoption, whether I just end up with fur babies. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I know now I'm going to be a mum, but at 16 years old, it was like, how can my life go on if I'm not going to be a mum?
Yeah.
And that is obviously such a big thing to say, but that's all I kept thinking. And, you know, I went to college and then I kind of left college and just worked straight away, and I was around pregnant women, and it was just awful. Like, I just felt like I was being hit by barrier after barrier after barrier.
Yeah.
And it's only since talking about it on Race Across the World that I've been like, oh, this is who I am and it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's been such a healing journey for me,
Yeah.
talking about it and being really vulnerable and doing things like this, that's been like, oh, it's fine that I'm this way, and I am going to be a mum no matter what, so it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, and we're going to come on to that incredible moment and Race Across the World and plans for the future, and it's really inspiring to hear that. And I want to ask you about that kind of journey to acceptance and that big word, because it's quite a buzzword. It's thrown around quite a lot when we talk about chronic illnesses and conditions.
Yeah.
But in terms of when you're at that earlier point in your life, like nearly 11 years ago,
Yeah.
how was it for you in terms of like relating to peers and feeling kind of in your world and in the chaos that was unraveling in your, you know, in your own head and outside within your family and things, and then the other world that you're part of, which is school and friends and just trying to be a normal 16-year-old?
Yeah, I think I went to a secondary school that was really, really small, so there was only about 60 people in my year.
Yeah.
So all the girls knew when another girl had started their period, and everybody knew that I hadn't, which in some sense was quite comforting to be able to have those conversations, and people knew, and you know, people could have those conversations with me. In a sense, that was quite comforting. In another sense, it was like, oh, crap, everyone knows my business, and you know,
it's very personal. It's very intimate for a community that you might be close with, but also might not be that close with, to know that about you.
And also at 16, like I say, it's not in anyone else's remit that they're thinking about children. So for me to be like, I can't have kids, like they were like, you're 16, like it doesn't matter, kind of thing. Whereas for me, it was like my world had just changed massively. But then I left school and went to college, and I found college really, really tricky because there was people at college who didn't know, and in a sense that was hard because it was like, you know, girls would ask me for tampons, and obviously I didn't carry tampons because I didn't have periods, and sometimes I used to feel like I was walking around like see-through, that people could just see straight through me. They could see I didn't have a womb, they were like taking the mick out of me, and nobody was doing that. I know that now, but at the time I was like, everyone's just trying to, you know, get at me, and it was just a really negative headspace for me. It was a really, really, really challenging time.
I can really relate to that. I remember after I got diagnosed with endometriosis, I couldn't see it at the time, but looking back now, I definitely was walking around thinking to myself, I'm not Alex, like I don't look like me, I'm literally a walking, talking, like in terms of what endometriosis actually looks like, I always describe it as like a blister that can be tiny or massive. And I kind of was behaving and living my life as if I was just a big walking, talking piece of endo. Yeah. And my identity and me and who I was had just completely gone, because in that initial few years after being diagnosed, I was like, oh, I'm just a condition. And I thought people just saw me as that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was a really hard time at college because, like I say, some people knew that I'd like been to school with.
Yeah.
And I felt a bit like that, like, oh, well, they know, and, you know, they're not going to bring certain things up around me, so they're acting a bit different, But then the people that didn't know, I was like trying to put on a completely new identity to them, and it was just a bizarre time. thinking back. Because I think college, you know, it is that time where you are trying to build your personality and, you know, figure out where you're going to go next, and you start working. It's a bit of an introduction to adult life, isn't it? And yeah, I think I was battling with that, and to the people that didn't know, I was in so much denial. And, you know, just pretending. Like, sometimes I would carry tampons in my bag just in case people asked, so I could sort of pretend, and I'd thought about, you know, if I got asked certain questions, what I would say, and then that was kind of really false, because I remember my best friend at college, like, if she was sat beside me, she'd be like, what the hell are you on about, like, you know, you don't, and that was just such a hard thing to navigate, and I think I was kind of layering on these, like, not false identities, but I don't know, just masks and masks and masks.
Yeah, it's like attempts to feel normal.
Yeah.
And I say that with like...
Yeah, because what is normal?
Exactly, question marks. But what is normal is, exactly, it's a huge question.
Yeah.
And it's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But it is that thing, I think, we instinctivly, in terms of like, you know, going back thousands of years, our bodies know that to survive and to be alive, we need to be in the community, in the tribe. We need to be in, because then we're looked after and we're safe. If we're by ourselves, we're at more risk of being killed by, I don't know, a lion or something. So that's still within us.
Yeah.
So we're still driven by wanting to fit in and be normal and be part of a community. And I can really relate to what you're saying. It's not that you want to be fake or you want to be somebody else, but because you've had this life-changing moment, you are just kind of grabbing onto strings of what you think other people will perceive as normal, so you can kind of relate to them. Yeah,
exactly. And it's exactly that. I think any teenager's doing that anyway, regardless of what's going on inside of them. So yeah, it was just a weird time.
Definitely. Did you have any, probably unintentionally, but did you have any comments that you just thought like, oh, why are you saying that to me? Or any like really tricky situations where you just thought, I just want the ground to completely swallow me up right now?
I think I remember quite a few times of being sat round, like, and it still happens now, but obviously it doesn't affect me as bad, but when you're in like a girl group, there are topics that come up, I think, from being like on the outside. I've become quite observant of these like topics, and you know, babies is always one of them. Being on the pill is always one of them. Periods. And when we talk about that tribe and being part of something, when women come together, of course that's what they're going to think about, because you know, as a woman, there is that expectation that you have a womb and it functions and you have periods, and you know, like they are just. And I think that's why I felt so, like, lonely and left out, because in my head at 16, I was like, I'm never going to be able to fit in with these conversations.
Yeah.
And now, obviously it looks a bit different now because most people have watched the show and they know, but in the same breath then, I don't really want people to act differently around me. I still want to feel part of that tribe in some way. But yeah, being kind of the observer and the looker in, there's definitely been times where I'm like, I don't know what to say here. And they'd be like, yeah, the pink pill. I'm like, yeah, the pink pill. I have no idea what that is.
No, just gonna nod and smile and there's so many complicated parts of living with something or having some kind of diagnosis of condition. You know, we could talk for hours about the hundreds of ripple effects that are out there. But that element is especially complicated because you are between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? In some ways you want the appreciation and the acknowledgement that this is different for you, and to give you some kind of like courtesy and just be mindful and compassionate and empathic. But at the same time, you're also like, well, don't treat me like I'm like an alien. I'm not like really weird or completely different to you. So it's like, how do you balance those two things, because they're both totally relevant? Yeah,
I think the topic around children and having a family, I think it is changing. I think people are a lot more mindful of, you know, asking women, asking couples, because, you know, there are so many conditions, and also there are so many preferences, like, some people don't want to have children.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And that's okay, and I think there was such a societal pressure on that women, you know, you get married, you have kids. I do see that changing. Like, I have a lot of friends that are kind of, they've just got engaged or they're married and buying houses, and I think sometimes women talk about it if they're having trouble getting pregnant because they find comfort in that, and yeah, I think the group that I kind of sit with now, a lot of the time, like, those conversations are going on, but they are mindful, and I think that's really nice. But I think at a younger age, period, contraceptions, girls want to find comfort in other girls that, you know, and I think that's fine. Like, if you're struggling with your period, it's fine to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing, I think, advocating for things like this, because you know, if someone's struggling with endometriosis, for example, if someone's struggling with, I want you to be able to talk about it.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. Like, I would never want a girl group to sit there and be like, okay, let's not talk about anything to do with our body.
Yeah.
Because
awkward silence. Let's just wait to think about something else to talk about.
Yeah,
it's a whole moment, and that really shows your incredible, like, big-heartedness and kindness. The fact that you are, even when you're dealing with all this yourself, you're still thinking, come to me, talk to me, share those things, we'll talk about them as a collective, because not everyone would be able to do that, and there's no right or wrong.
No, there isn't.
But it does show a huge amount of empathy and compassion from you, that you're able to still welcome those conversations in when it is difficult, and it's not easy to sit in that moment.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes it's difficult for me to know what the right thing is to say in these instances, because I know that I've come through a whole journey of, like, pain and trauma, and I've done a lot of healing in the last year, and I know I'm in a good place now, and I can kind of look back at moments of my life and wish that it'd gone a different way. And, you know, you can never change how you're feeling in a certain moment.
No.
And, you know, I look back at some of those moments and I do wish the ground had swallowed me up, but would I change? I don't know. It's so difficult to say, isn't it? Because I know that if I was getting my diagnosis today, or, you know, I've had young girls come forward and say, I got my diagnosis, and I understand the trauma that those people are going through.
Yeah.
And the pain. But it's like, there's so much learning to be done at that age that you don't want to shelter yourself off from all of that either.
No.
Because you're going to grow into the person that you're meant to be anyway. And I believe that.
I believe that as well.
Yeah.
I totally agree. You can look back, and I think I've heard you talk about this before, I've done it as well, when you're, again, those post-diagnosis years, you can do a lot of kind of, whether you want to call it rebelling or just kind of like acting out because you're trying to deal with a massive trauma and a lot of things that are going on. And you can look back at the ripe old age of 27 and think, oh God, what were you thinking? What on earth did you make those decisions?
Yeah.
But like you say, you had to make those decisions in that moment, in that time, to give you the lessons and to shape you into the person that you are today.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's a difficult time to navigate, but I think time is a healer, isn't it?
Yes,
and
it is a cliche, but it is also very true.
It is, and, you know, like I said, it's taken me 11 years and my path's been here, there and everywhere, but I do believe kind of sitting through those difficult conversations and having those kind of internal thoughts, it's just led me to be who I am today.
Yeah, and that's a pretty special person. And speaking about that, let's move on to you and James and that really beautiful moment. I rewatched it not that long ago.
Oh, really?
Because I cried like a baby when I initially watched it. He'll kill me for saying this, but so did Charlie. He loves a good emotional watch. But it was really special, and it clearly captivated the nation because everyone was talking about it. So we know that obviously the show is edited a lot because there's so many hours of footage that you guys have to kind of get into an episode. So can you just tell us a little bit about what was happening, like, just before that moment and how it kind of came about, that conversation between the two of you?
Well, we were in Malaysia at the time, and, you know, we'd been working, I think we'd just worked at the tofu place. We were working in, like, a tofu bakery. Would you call it a tofu bakery?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. And I remember being at this job, and there was quite prominent, like, women jobs and men jobs.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, I was given the sweeping brush and it was pink, and, you know, I was even washing up, and I remember, I don't know, I just remember having these thoughts about, you know, being in a country where women were seen as the kind of stay at home, have children, raise your children. Yeah. Men go off and do, you know, the dirty work.
Very traditional kind of roles.
Yeah, and obviously it made me reflect back to home, and there is no expectation from my family that I should be a stay-at-home mum, but even before my diagnosis there was never going to be that expectation. You know, my family are really hardworking. They would encourage anything and everything that I want to do, and I believe that that would be the case no matter what. So I was just reflecting on the fact that, like, there are girls out there in Malaysia who will have MLKH that won't be able to have children.
Yeah.
And it really made me think about what life is like for them. Because there are a lot of places where, you know, young girls, they do get married young, they are expected to have a family, and what happens in those instances where they can't have children?
Yeah. And that must have really understandably touched a nerve.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like when you think about anyone that is no one else can be in your body, only you can live your life. But those people that have that condition, that is a very close connection, probably as close as you can get, and it's almost like there's an invisible cord between the two of you. So that must have brought up a lot of emotions in that moment.
Yeah, I remember one of the, you know, where the tyre burst.
Yeah.
I think it was on the way to the tofu place.
Yeah.
And all these girls surrounding me, can we have a selfie, can we have a selfie? And they were saying, you're so beautiful. And I thought, they're so young, like they must have been like 8 or 9. So I was just thinking, like, say if one of them had this condition, like, what is that journey like for them?
Yeah.
Through everything, like the medical help, the understanding, it just kind of blew my little brains for a while whilst I was out there. And I think it did bring up a lot of emotion. It sort of brought up that frustration, but also that kind of, like you say, that just connection to want to help. And even now I'm like, how would I even go about helping the rest of the world kind of understand? And again, like, I'm just one person who is diagnosed with one condition, but there are so many conditions out there that can affect fertility. And yeah, in our country, it is being spoken about a lot more, isn't it?
Yes. Well, thanks to you and lots of other really amazing people, that awareness is getting out there as it should. And I remember from the clip that we saw, you said something that was clearly difficult for you to say yourself, but also I imagine something that landed with so many people, actually, whether you have a condition or not, because I think there's a lot of us out there that really struggle with this. And you said something along the lines of, oh, I don't really like myself, or I don't know if I like myself. And you said that to James, which was really brave, and I also have a younger brother, so I imagine as an older sister in that kind of instinct of protecting, that must have been hard and very vulnerable to kind of say that to your younger brother and out loud, just at all. Yeah, I think I remember in that moment kind of forgetting about the cameras or what was on the other side of the camera in terms of, like, loads of people were going to see me say this. Yeah.
I genuinely believe that wherever that conversation had happened in the world with James and I, it was going to go that way regardless if it was on a TV show or not, because James and I had never spoken about my condition. So 10 years, like, we just never sat down. And to be honest, I think we have raised across the world to thank for that, because I couldn't ever imagine sitting down with my little brother and being like, right, so 10 years ago, this is da-da-da. Yeah. And like you say, it's such a vulnerable thing to say, actually, I don't like the person I am, because I've spent years and years trying to perfect this front of, I'm fine with who I am, and, you know, it is what it is. But I think when you break down those layers and those walls, and you do show your vulnerabilities, like, it's scary. It is a really scary thing. And, you know, the way I kind of explained it on the show is that when you are younger and you're trying to develop this sense of identity, and then you're questioning yourself, like, I just developed this really negative self-outlook. Like, I just...
Understandably. At 16, understandably, to have someone say to you, oh, you thought that this is how you were and this is how everything inside looked and operated? Oh, actually, no. Here's a complete kind of curveball that you hadn't even thought about was possible. Yeah, really, really challenging. And then I think because of the age I was, and then going into college and then trying to, like you say, just rebel and do anything else, like, it was just a bit of a mess. Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the word acceptance before, which is a huge buzzword when it comes to conditions. Yeah. And I suppose I'm wondering that moment of very bravely and vulnerably and openly just saying, you know what, I don't actually know if I do like myself. Yeah. was that a bit of kind of a door or an unlocking of the key to start that journey to acceptance? Are you still on it? How does that look for you?
I think saying everything I said out loud was like one step in the process. And obviously, with the nature of the show, it was filmed and then there was quite a long gap before it was aired.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was like, oh my God, have I done the right thing? Did I say the right thing? The producers were amazing because I used to message them in like panic, like maybe I shouldn't have said anything and da-da-da. And the closer it got, and it was on episode 7 as well, so it was like
that's a long
quite towards the end.
Yeah.
And I was seeing how many people were watching the show, and I was seeing all the comments on social media and how opinionated people were, and I was thinking, oh my God, this is coming. And I remember my mum and dad came round to watch that episode with me, and I did actually get a little clip the night before I think it aired, and I said to my mum, like, do you want to see it? Or do you want to see it with the rest of the world? And she was like, I would actually like to watch it. And as soon as she watched it, she was like, I'm coming around tomorrow to watch this episode with you. Oh. And I switched my phone off during that episode because I thought I actually couldn't deal with the bombardment.
No, I think that's very sensible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, I thought I was going to get like a lot of trolls, a lot of hate, a lot of like people questioning. And I remember switching my phone on and I just cried because the messages I was getting were the nicest things I could ever ask for.
Yeah.
And I think it was genuine in that moment. I thought, oh, what have I been so worried about? You know, not even just the 6 months leading up to it, like the 10 years of having this condition, thinking people wouldn't think of me the same, people wouldn't like the person I am. It was just like, I can't even explain it, like that acceptance, like you say. It was like, oh, okay, this is who I am. I just need to like own this now because it's not a bad thing.
It's almost like we need I think it's completely human, need a combination of like external acceptance and internal acceptance.
Yes. Yeah.
That moment was beautiful, and that was kind of a starter of internal acceptance because you actually vocalised it and put it out into the world. And then seeing the response on your phone after the episode is kind of the two coming together. I mean, it's such a shame that kind of our baseline expectation now is that we just think of social media and think like hate and trolls, which is understandably the normal, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But absolutely, it's only right that there's nothing but support and love. And I'm glad that you got that because it's what anyone deserves.
Yeah.
And that leads really nicely on to me asking you about kind of because you've had a massive outpour of love and support and questions and become a real role model and an ambassador for people with MRKH. So what have you actually learned from like that community since really being exposed to it on a massive scale?
Yeah, I think, you know, some messages I got were, saying things that I couldn't even comprehend. I remember getting a message from a lady who was in her 80s, and she messaged saying, I never knew my condition had a name. And she had been told however long ago that maybe she didn't have a womb, but she never knew.
And she was 80 years old,
Yeah.
and she spent her whole life not
Her
knowing.
whole life.
Oh God, I can't even imagine.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, I was getting messages from like parents who, their teenage girls had just been diagnosed with it. And then everything in between. So, messages from different men with partners or men who struggled with their fertility and just saying thank you. And it was just like a whole range. And I think for once in my life, I was like, oh, I actually have a voice and I actually have a purpose. And you'll probably remember me saying on the show, but James was always like, everything happens for a reason. And I hate it.
Yes.
Still have negative.
You guys had a few rounds, didn't you?
Yeah.
Of kind of, I get that you're trying to be positive, but that's really irritating.
Yeah.
So like, stop.
Yeah, because I always saw the world with just like these dark tinted glasses, and I was like, if you say everything happens for a reason, what is my reason for that? And for the first time, reading through his messages, I was like, oh, maybe there is a reason.
Yeah.
Not that necessarily means that it's fair or whatever, but if the only thing I wanted to do was share my stories to help other people. And then instantly, like, knowing that had worked, I was like, oh, that's okay then. Because actually my pain and my suffering for 10 years, if that just helps one other person, that's fine. And I actually had a message the other day from a girl, and she said, I've just received my diagnosis. and the professional told me to follow you, and I've just been watching all your content, and I
wow.
thought, if it helps doctors be able to communicate that better.
Yeah. What a compliment to you.
Yeah. I was like, welcome to my page. But I just thinking back to, being 16, I'd never even heard of the condition, let alone anyone else that had that condition. And, if I can be Betty with that condition to someone else, and someone's actually proud and says, oh, I've got the same condition as Betty from Race Across the World, then job done. I think that's a good enough reason for it to have happened to me.
Yeah, and it's really, I love the way that you said Betty with this condition, because one thing I was going to ask you about, it links that kind of acceptance and that identity, and I mentioned it before about just feeling like a walking, talking condition, how you see you now and your identity.
Yeah.
It sounds like from the way you described it then, it's like you with this thing.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as maybe when you were 16, when it's just this thing.
Yeah.
And my entire life has gone like that.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what the future looks like.
Yeah, I think it still definitely comes in waves, and I don't want to sit here and be like it's, red roses every day, because actually the older I get, I'm kind of getting towards that age where actually I am going to want to start a family. And that's kind of a bit bittersweet in a sense, but I am at that accepting stage where I know I'm going to be a mum, like I say, so I am more chilled to the idea of that might be an unconventional way.
Yeah. And
that's fine. And I think actually now we are in a society where we are more accepting of the different ways, so it's not just because I have MRKH that I'm exploring these different ways, it's just because this is the way life is. And I have a lot of people in my circle who are going through similar things, so I think that does make it easier.
Yeah.
And it's only from talking about it and saying, oh hey guys, look, this is the way I am, that people feel comfortable to then talk to me about what they're going through.
Yes.
So without having that it's the ripple effect, isn't it? It's without having that communication, you're not really welcoming that communication in.
Yeah, absolutely. You're extending the olive branch to an enormous number of people, which is absolutely amazing. And I really like what you said. It's important to not just say, obviously a year ago you had an incredible moment and journey and was clearly life-changing for you personally in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah.
But when we talk about acceptance, and I know that when I've talked to people about it as well, it's important to know that acceptance doesn't mean happy all the time.
Yeah.
You can have a lifelong journey to acceptance. You can have a few years. It's completely personal.
Yeah.
But acceptance can be, I'm having a really good day, but then I'm also going to have a really bad day. I'm going to question everything.
Yeah.
I sometimes might go back into that slightly darker place, but I'll come back out and it's a whole multicolour of different things. Yeah,
it definitely is. And I think sometimes having put myself out there into the world, and it's a bit surreal for me because I spent sort of 10 years in denial, kind of hiding from this, and now it's out there for everyone to see, and it's there's no going back now. It's not one day I can walk into a job interview and be like, oh yeah, I'm Betty with a womb, don't think of me any different. It is out there. And
does that scare you, being out there?
It does sometimes.
Yeah.
Because like I say, I'm kind of getting to that age now where, I am going to start to have a family, and I think, oh, am I going to have loads of eyes on me, wondering how that's going to be, and, obviously I'm with Dan, and that's our relationship, that's personal, but in a sense now it's kind of I've broken those walls of it being really private, because in some, I'm just about to freeze my eggs, for example, and in some senses I think, do people want to hear about that? To kind of normalise it. There's a lot of people going through that. It's not spoken about.
Yeah.
I've seen the implications of speaking about it and the positive effects it can have.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, I'm like, well, how far do you go with putting everything out there?
Yeah. It's such a tricky balance.
Yeah.
And it's such a good question. And I think just from one girl to another, I think it's important to say as many kind of people that follow you, and I'm sure are so grateful for your help and your awareness and everything that you've done. Like any other human on the planet, you still have every right to have a private life.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have those boundaries and to say, you know what, guys, I can do a few videos on this X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
But actually, it's your life. It's your and Dan's life. It's your journey. So whatever you want to be yours, you can keep yours.
Yeah.
And I think you've got such a beautiful community of followers. that I'm sure they'd respect that
Yeah.
and go, yeah, you know what, I want to talk about it, but if I was in that position, if I was in Betty's shoes, I'd still want someone to be like, actually, I'll let you have your privacy as well.
And also it's a really kind of tricky community because people are at different stages of like acceptance and the way they're feeling about it, and it's some of these topics can be really, really triggering for people, and I am aware that a lot of people are kind of following my journey because they might struggle with their infertility or their self-acceptance, and you don't want to suddenly show up one day and be like, oh, I've accepted myself and, you know, this is what I'm doing, because that can be really tricky for some people. So it's just about being sensitive and kind of normalising those conversations, but just in a really like mindful way, I think.
And still putting you first.
Yeah.
Because you've had more than enough trials and tribulations the past 11 years, so you definitely deserve to put you first as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask a question, but I'm not asking you to ask about fertility in particularly or that journey. If you want to talk about it, it's completely up to you. But just in general, Betty, in the future, what does the future look like for you in terms of hopes and dreams? Or, I don't know, whether you want to climb Mount Everest or whether you want to start your own fashion brand, whatever, you know, literally anything. What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, well, if anyone's seen my fashion hauls on Instagram, they'll know that that's definitely not the path for me. I would love for future Betty to still be advocating. I do think it is really important, and I've found such like hope and joy in kind of speaking about my own experiences and helping other people. So I do definitely think that is in my future somewhere.
Okay, exactly.
I'd like to do another TV show. I think I'm going to put that out there into the universe. I would love to.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, my biggest dream is to do Strictly Come Dancing, but whether that will happen, I'm not sure.
That is such a good choice. Such a good choice. I mean, for so many reasons, but I just think about that opening episode where they get the sparkle and the fake tan and the hair and the makeup. I mean, that's every girl's dream, right? Like, that would be amazing.
So yeah, we can put that into the universe and manifest that.
Yeah, BBC, I hope you're listening.
But in terms of kind of, I mean, like I've said, I'm definitely going to be a mum. But before that, I want to travel some more. I do want to build my It's a Balance Thing brand, which is a whole community on kind of supporting women and feeling like they belong to something, because I spent so long feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. And, you know, going back to those human instincts, we need that connection and that belonging. So, yeah, I want to build that.
That sounds incredible. That is going to be a busy few 10, 20, whatever years it is, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Loads of really, really beautiful things happening.
Yeah.
Just before we finish, there is one thing that I'm asking my guests to do, if you'd be up for a final little statement to leave our audiences with. So I actually want you to pretend that I'm not sat here, that actually in this chair is Betty at 16, and I'd like you to just think and say a line or two about what you'd like to say to her nearly 11 years on from where she is.
Oh, I feel a bit like in the feels about this.
Take your time.
I would tell younger Betty, I feel like it's going to be one huge cliche, but sometimes the cliches are the best.
Sometimes the cliches are the best.
I would tell Betty to not worry so much about the big bad world, because that's... I don't know how to say this. I would tell her not to worry too much about the big bad world, and it's not as big or bad as she thinks it is, and that the path that she's on, no matter how windy and up and down and whatever, it's still going to lead to some beautiful places. It's going to lead to meet some beautiful people, and the pain that she is feeling will get better, and she will find a gorgeous little purpose in her life. Yeah, and just to be proud of the person that she is. I wish I could tell her to just enjoy her life in that moment, and not worry too much about the future.
Beautiful words, my beautiful girl. Thank you.
I loved our girl chat this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, then don't forget to hit the follow button wherever you're listening. To find out more about us or today's guest, then head to the show notes. Until next time, I'm Alexandra, and remember, it's not just a period.